How's it going there, everyone? How is it going? Welcome to another week of Candle of Knowledge. Man, I am just really honored, just feeling good every time I get to do this. It means a lot for the people who interact with this, video, audio, journey, diary, journal, and it's a journey, like I said, and so many other things. Candle and knowledge. How's it going? If you found this from YouTube Shorts or from like TikTok or from some random Instagram share, whatever it may be, I appreciate you rocking with me. It means so much to me. It really does. Again, Candle and Knowledge is about the life and lessons of my deceased parents and the lessons they taught me right now in my current life and everything, how I'm using it in my day to day to navigate my current life and also my future. This intro changes all the time. But again, my name is Jarvis Smith. How's it going there? And it just means a lot, man, to me to just be able to do this. It's been a real blessing. And that's a very fitting word for, the start of today's episode because today's episode, man, I want to talk about spirituality. I want to talk about in particular my faith, my spirituality in particular. And I guess a precursor in this is not necessarily about trying to get people to believe in what I believe in or see my POV, or even for that matter, I may not even say the preferred things for people who do believe in God and, a higher power and things of that nature, because it's just my interpretation about my spirituality and about how I utilize it in my life, in particular, my creative life. That's the focus I'm putting on. So, again, this is something that may not interest you, then maybe this just isn't the episode for you. Maybe this just isn't probably the podcast for you. I can't say that this is like a religious podcast at all, but there's just some spirituality. And I want to start maybe right here where did I get introduced to spirituality and my faith and, God and all that stuff into my life? It really started obviously with my parents, my mom, my dad. It kind of upon birth, that was just something that, that they talked about. I will say though, my mom was definitely the more religious person overall. My father's father definitely just had a street knowledge with a religious perspective, which I definitely lean on and like a lot. And my mom was very, just outwardly just about her beliefs and faith. But they both believed in God, and my family members, both of my mom, my dad's side, believe in God and their spirituality there. But the real thing I would say is that for me, my connection with this, it really just started with understanding my spirituality through funerals, actually, because that's really where it comes from. Again, this is just my take on it. I don't go to church. I have no intentions of being a regular church going member. So the only time I go to church is during a funeral. Again, this may not be what some people who believe in God want to hear, and maybe this might make you feel uncomfortable and feel a type of way. But again, you're more than welcome to click off this video and go watch something else. Because yeah, this is just my spiritual journey and my POV on it. Yeah, I'm not really interested in necessarily going to church. I'll come to that, point when I feel like it's ready for me and in my direction. But my introduction to spirituality came through funerals, right? Not necessarily going to church every Sunday. And through the funerals, seeing the whole entire process of, obviously the grieving process for anyone that they're going through, but also just the connection that people have with the spirituality and God and how that's being spoken into the service. And one of the biggest things I took away from was people who cried at funerals. And in particular, my father, who would always cry at funerals, but not just because someone passed. He would cry at funerals when the music would begin to play because he said, man, it's something about that music. And this is a point where I'm about to get to. I think the deepest connection I've got with my spirituality and where it's really come into my life fully is through the music. And it's not through the, I guess, gospel music necessarily, even though I love that too. Trust me, I really do. It really is, I guess it's the mixture of like contemporary artists and how they use elements of gospel or spirituality into their music, right? It can be obviously, certain instruments like organs and drums and keys and melodies and, type of arrangements that they're doing with the music. But then also it can be literally some artists who put in like samples of like a sermon or a preacher speaking, into like one of their songs as like an intro or as like some type of bridge or some type of outro or something like that. I love that stuff, man. I really do. I like the spoken word of the pastor being infused with the music and how that can kind of like guide the music and create a narrative and kind of create a vibe and an aesthetic with the music. That's really where I came into my spirituality because I saw the creativity of it, the art of it, and how the art and the creativity of it influenced people and how it gave people some type of energy, whether it be a positive energy or it made it feel. I'm not saying this in a bad way, but it created a melancholy type of energy, which can be perceived as positive or negative. It depends on how you want to look at it, but just create a sense of melancholy, right? Sadness of maybe it's someone who passed away, or maybe it's they're talking about something that making them feel something, that maybe it's a thing that they're going through, and they really just feel what this person's talking about. And through the music, through the art, all that stuff is kind of coming together. That's like the real spiritual journey that I've been on. And I would say I have these things where when I listen to music, it's very vivid to me. It's very vivid to me when I listen to music. I would almost describe it as people who say they can see colors or stuff like that when they listen to music or whatever. I don't know what it is, but all my visualizations, my manifestations for that matter, become very, very vivid when I listen to music. And especially when I listen to different type of spiritual music from certain contemporary artists I'll be listening to and checking out, whether it be from hip hop, whether it be an R&B artist, a pop artist, even some rock artists definitely incorporate certain elements of the church, of the gospel, of that in there, man. And it's like that's where my journey's at, man. That's where it gets heightened at, man. And when I think about some songs right now, let me go ahead and go to my phone really quick and check out these songs that can name off that really touch on that. Songs like Big Crits, "Bury Me in Gold," right? Kendrick Lamar, "Count Me Out." The artist Friday in his solo version of God Did, which is basically like DJ Khaled took that and then he made a whole entire song out of it. But like if you listen to a solo version, which is me, that just on repeat loop of him just saying, God did that. That always gets me. The artist Jack Ross, Saved, Jay Electronica, APIDTA, Tupac, Thugs Mansion, Priya Ragu, Let Me Breathe, Repraise. The artist Sleigh Bells, which is sitting proudly on the back of my wall. They have a song called "And Saints," which is very haunting and more gothic, but it also has a spiritual element to it as well. And I'm very fortunate to say, not to detour too much, but I had a chance to interview them too for an old podcast that I did. And we talked about that just a little bit. It was a beautiful song, and the writer, I believe it was Derek, the guitarist of the band, he wrote that record, and Alexis Krauss sung it, and man, it was a beautiful record right there. So again, it to me it had the spiritual elements in there, even though it's a little bit more gothic and dark, amazing. And then artists like Stormzy, "Blinded by Your Grace." And of course, though might be very controversial to say, but I still rock with him to this day because of the impact of the music sitting on my wall. Kanye West, in particular, like what he did with the song on Donda 24. That record is amazing. Like 24, the regular at speed version, but then I go on YouTube and I listen to 24, the slow down version, and both of them have different type of feelings for me as well. But then also too, I thought that what he did with the Sunday service choir, not just with the live, version of it, obviously, and reinterpreting his songs, but then also the album, just the Sunday service album that they created, was amazing just without Kanye really being heavily featured on there at all. And that song "More Than Anything" was truly a connecting song for me. And again, I have these things where when I listen to these songs and I listen to this music, I go into these type of, deep dives spiritually where I can just visually see anything that I'm trying to manifest for myself, whether it be overcome a life struggle or some type of obstacle. But then also, it is, when I say this in a good way, it's a trigger because it definitely immediately triggers memories and thoughts about my parents and their passing and them, not being with me. And it triggers those emotions of what I might be feeling right there. And that's the second part of this too, where my parents definitely has enhanced my spirituality and just my faith, where I would say, and again, this is just my journey with it, but like, you know, I don't really I think about now, if I'm really thinking about this, I think now in my life, I'm not really thinking about, the afterlife in the sense of like heaven or hell. I think about the afterlife and like my agenda being to reconnect with my parents. That's what I'm really thinking about. Like that's what it is to me now. Like that's what the afterlife looks like to me. I don't know. I'm not putting any other type of things. That's just what it looks like to me. That reconnection with my parents in the afterlife. Like that's what I do hold on to and believe in. Like we'll get a chance to meet again. I'll live my life here and we'll get a chance to meet again. And it will be another great moment for all of us to connect, in the afterlife, however that is. And I think that's just where I leave it at now. And that's just kind of where my spirituality through my creativity, through my art has led me to. But then also going back to the music and doing these deep dives. And I say that they're triggering because to me, it inspires my art. It inspires projects like Candle and Knowledge and other type of creative writings that I might do or any other type of idea that I might have. And I will say, if anything, the music that I listen to, that some of the artists I just named off, they're almost like a calling card, for a lack of a better term, a bat signal to call on to the spirits of my parents. And when I think about the time that I had those deep dreams about my mom, and the very vivid one that I talked about before, that was listening to a lot of music, a lot of those same songs I was listening to prior to having that dream. And then I had that dream. So it's almost like a calling card, something like a way to kind of get their attention through the music, because I'm diving in so deep with my thoughts and my manifestations and the visuals that I literally can see as I listen to music, especially when I listen to different type of spiritual music or artists that use spiritual elements into their music. It just triggers that thought into me. And that's just my journey with it. Again, I know that may sound kind of odd to some, but for me, throughout this grieving process, the healing process, everything like that, that's been my journey. That's been my process. And, when I think about another part of my creativity is design. This shirt that I'm wearing, or crew neck that I'm wearing right now, is actually something that I designed. And um, there you go. Probably can see it now. And I know some people always. This one gets a lot of comments in particular, and some people are like, "Oh man, this can't be about moms, or mom. What does that mean? Is that like a band or something like that?" Or some people are like, "Oh man, I didn't know you believed in this. I didn't know you followed that faith or whatever." It's not really like that surface level. It when I wear this design, I had this on several different things too, not just this crew neck. I have it on a hat and some shirts and some stickers that I had made. And basically, this is basically me honoring the deaths of my parents. Even though it says mom, it's honoring the deaths of my parents. This is basically highlighting their deaths. So for me, as I this is probably the first time I've done this, breaking this design down, is the two crosses right here just represent, yeah, the two crosses right here represent the afterlife for both my parents. The capital M's, those are, tombstone heads to me. Though that's why they're capitalized like that, even though they're like in this large capital and lower, still lowercase at the same time, because they represent that. And then the O in the middle actually is representing the void, right? It represents that open space that still exists, that's with me on this journey. And then kind of like the space in between them is just like what you do in between all that, right? Like that's what this all represents to me. That's the concept of this design and what it means to me when I came up with it overall. But I like the fact that it triggers people to give a response, a reaction. I think that's what maybe good, maybe pieces of creativity will do in any form or any medium. It will just inspire people to leave a comment or interact with it. You don't have to ask for it, you just put it on, and then people just engage with it because they're triggered by it. It just makes them stop and like, what does that mean? Or what is that? Or I've never seen that before, or whatever. So when I came up with this design, that's what I was doing. And in particular too, when I did this, it was me kind of taking the grief, the sorrow, the things that I was going through after my mom had passed, and just wanting to do something with it where I incorporated into my life. It wasn't just a memory. No, I wanted this to. I remember literally saying, writing it down. I want to incorporate my parents' death into my swag, and that kind of alter my mind about a lot of different things. My presentation of myself is always going to include elements of them in it too, from how I dress, from how I speak, to the things that I get myself involved with in the future that I build for myself. Like all that stuff kind of comes together from them. And I think that's like the most positive thing that I can do with the void, with the grief, with this type of feeling of losing them, because it's been a journey, and I learned a lot about myself about this, but choosing to take the grief and the void that I know is always going to be with me, and just using it as a positive way, not a negative way, and highlighting those experiences, it means a lot to me overall. And the reason why I went with mom is because it's a little bit different when you see a guy wearing a mom shirt. It's not something often you see. You might see the mom tattoo, but not someone wearing a shirt that says mom on it or whatever. And also, too, it just feels more, I think my mom has always been my creative muse too, as well. So I think that it's just kind of natural going there. But it's symbolic for both of them, my parents, for both my mother and my father. And just throughout this journey, just utilizing it again to incorporate them into my life through my spirituality, through my faith and what I believe in. So yeah, I definitely do believe in, God, and that, just in my own way. And I think that it's really interesting and cool to have conversations with people who don't believe at all too. I think it's great too. I think that it's a great conversations and dialogue because that inspires my creativity as well, and just taking maybe their perspectives on what they just believe in, and into the conversation, into the art and that I do. And I'm always been like that, you know. I think my father comes from my father just being open minded to have conversations with anybody. And I think the biggest thing I could take away from this entire journey through understanding my faith and my spirituality and just creativity and art and all mixing it all together is just that, you know, this is the best way to kind of immortalize who they are into everything that I do, because they're always going to be in the conversation, especially when I wear a design like this or I do something like this series, or listen to a song. They're always going to be there. And I'm not afraid to go there. When I say go there, I mean to be triggered by those emotions and their memories, and understanding how to work with the void, their loss, and incorporate into what you do. Understanding how that can be part of the spiritual journey of healing, which is, yes, its own spiritual journey too, is truly amazing. So utilizing that, I think about everything that my parents taught me and everything that I learned from visiting churches through funerals and seeing people go through the grieving process, then going through the grieving process myself, and then how I came out of it on the other side. This is truly the only way that I know how to do it as a creative, as an artist of my own way of expressing myself. And as I continue to go on, I think the best thing I can do is teach the next generation, which is, you know, my nephew. And if I were to ever have a child, that this is how you can take negative moments and make them positive.